Joining me now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, good to see you this morning. Really hard to watch what's taking place. Your reaction to Trey's report there?
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty much a certainty that the Iranians are going to conduct likely a comprehensive attack that's larger than the last one, because despite the 300-plus drones and missiles, the attack was inconsequential in doing any real damage. Remember, the reason for the Iranians conducting that attack is the Israelis had killed a number of IRGC leaders in Damascus at their embassy, and they felt they had to take some action to stop that behavior from happening again. Well, that didn't do anything to stop the Israelis. I mean, they went into the capital city and in a high security zone killed the political leader of Hamas. This is the same high security zone, Maria, in the general vicinity where the government officials reside. So what Israel is saying to them, if I can kill a visitor who you're protecting in your high security zone with your security services, I think it's likely I could also kill someone who's living there permanently. And the reason is they've penetrated those security services. They have Iranian resistance that is assisting them in doing this. Yeah. So Iran doesn't have much choice but to try to get Israel to stand down, because this is getting much closer to the people who are running that regime. And believe me, that's got their attention. Putting together something that will deter Israel, I think, will not happen. If they kill a lot of civilians, and the Israelis have warned them about this, then Israel won't return a retaliation attack like they did the last time, where they only struck an air defense system, albeit close to a nuclear facility. This time they would come back with a much consequential attack. I think that is the reason why the Navy ships from China, who are going to, from the Indo-Pacific region there because of China, are coming to the Middle East to replace the ships that are there. But they would overlap and stay there if this thing gets out of hand. And that is the concern that this administration have. And I think it's a justifiable concern, because even though Iran doesn't want to go to war with Israel, Israel doesn't want to go to war with Iran. Mistakes happen when you're using these missiles, and you can't always control where they go. Look what happened with Hezbollah. I don't believe for a minute that Hezbollah was trying to kill children playing on a soccer field who were Arabs. That was misguided, likely, because there was an IDF facility nearby. The same thing can happen here, and things could get out of hand. That is the concern.
Well, I mean, Hamas is rejecting this invitation by the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt for a final round of ceasefire negotiations on Thursday. Israeli officials called the talks, quote, now or never moment for any deal. But the White House seems to be holding on to a hope that both sides will show up for more negotiations of a ceasefire. Watch this.
We fully expect that those talks are going to move forward, and they need to move forward. All negotiators should return to the table and bring this deal to a close. It's time to do that. The details are of such a nature that we think they can be hashed out. More critically, it's time for Hamas to release the hostages, which of course include American citizens.
General, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, the administration is trying to use these negotiations to stop the Iranians from conducting this retaliation attack, I think, is what's going on. But I mean, let's face reality here. The Israelis killed Hamas's chief negotiator, their political leader. And it's unlikely that Hamas is going to get into negotiations. I think what Hamas would love to see happen is Israeli make some major concessions because they're holding back. But the Israelis are not going to do this. The Israelis and the administration are really not on the same page. The administration is not going to tell us what they really want now is a permanent ceasefire, stop hostilities. That would be a disadvantage to the Israelis, because thousands of Hamas fighters would still be in residence in Gaza. They would declare it an absolute victory for themselves, and weeks or months later, they're prepared to reattack. That is something the Israelis cannot handle. The Israelis people don't want any part of that. So they're not really on the same page, even though publicly they appear to be.
Meanwhile, the state of our military now, I mean, right there, you know, for everyone to talk about, something you said so many years ago, particularly as it relates to the Navy. The U.S. Navy's warship production, now, General, in its worst state in 25 years, according to this new ABC News report. This report says the labor shortage is one of the myriad challenges that have led to backlogs in chip production and maintenance, combined with shifting defense priorities, last-minute design changes, and cost overruns. It has put the U.S. behind China in the number of ships at its disposal, and the gap is widening. I have so many deja vus here of you saying we're outmanned. We're outshipped. You've said this for so many years, General, and you've taught me so much about it. And now we've got these reports that everybody can see. What does it say about the U.S. Navy and the U.S. military compared to our adversaries like China?
Yeah, so we're trying to catch up, right? Because we dug this hole for ourselves because of the 9/11 wars. We were focused someplace else. But we're challenged to catch up. You know, China builds 8 or 9 frigates a year. We build 1. And there's a number of reasons for it. One is the labor force, trying to get skilled workers to do this. That's been a problem. And when you have a budget that's been in the tank for years, and then you want to start up and increase the production, the workers aren't there. They can't find those workers. The second thing is the Navy and its processes. They've been criticized for it, and they deserve the criticism. They changed the requirements. They changed the design as a result of it. As opposed to taking a year to build the ship, it takes years to build the ship. That's the reality of what is taken on. And when you compare our shipbuilding industry, which used to be #1 in the world, China, South Korea, and Japan.
Wow.
All do shipbuilding much better than we do. Their processes are better. They've got a highly skilled workforce in doing it. That's just the reality. We've lost significant ground here, not just militarily, but even in our commercial industry.
Yeah, that's disappointing. General, it's good to see you. We'll keep a spotlight on it for sure. Thanks very much, General Jack Keane.
Yeah, great talking to you.